Hi everybody, welcome back to the channel and welcome to a paint test on some new paint I've got in the studio. We're looking at the Ammo Atom range of paints, which is basically for the miniature modelers out there. And this paint's been around for quite a while, and looking on YouTube at reviews of this before I'm doing my review on it, every review is sort of aimed around the miniature modelers because that's where this paint's sort of designed for. So me testing it today for you guys is basically for the airbrushing that I do, which is on sort of paper or a bit of custom painting. Could be painting a skateboard. Will this paint be okay for that application? So we're going to find out today. We're going to do some mixing ratios with it as well and get it really thinned down, because I wanted to use this paint and see what it's like for doing the micro portraits, like credit card style portraits, or even just working on A3 paper or canvas, just to see how the paint is, how it lays down on paper, and using it for another application. I'm just going to put drops of it on some silicone paper and we'll mix a flow improver with it, and we'll just see how the paint breaks down mixing it with different sort of thinning methods. And then we'll move over to the easel, drop it in the iWater Custom Takuma, and we'll spray it and we'll just see how good it is thinned down. Right guys, we've got the paint here. We're going to use the black. This is satin black. Now on these bottles you get shakers in them, little sort of like ball bearings in them. The paint is quite thick, so straight out the bottle this isn't going to spray because it's quite thick. So we'll just drop a little droplet on there. We'll do a droplet there and one there. So looking at the consistency of that, it is quite thick. Now the first one I've got is distilled water, so dropping some distilled water on that and mixing it up, it mixes absolutely fine. You can see that it hasn't separated in any way. So that with water is a straight okay go-to mix for airbrushing, for thinning it down. Not a problem at all. The next one we have got, I've got some flow improver. Winsor Newton, we're just going to try a little bit of Winsor Newton, so I'm going to drop a little bit next to it, introduce it, and you can see that instantly. No separation. And that has mixed in really nice. Now we've got a bit of ISO. Now dropping ISO with it, you can see doesn't like it. The more you mix it, it will mix together. It has got it with the ISO. So it does mix down with it. I seen a video on YouTube last night and the guy tried ISO with it and it didn't mix up, but that is mixing. Now, right guys, the first mix we're going to try is the Winsor Newton. We'll try this. I'm going to mix this how I did on the paper over there. So I'm going to go Winsor Newton in first, about 7 or 8 drops, and then we'll go 1 drop of this into the mix. We'll go 2 drops. That's 2 drops in there, and we'll just give that a mix up in the cup. So this is the Winsor Newton flow improver, and just running that down the inside of the cup. That's a nice mix of that. Well, it seems it so far. We'll just pull that through. Now I'm running around 20 psi. We'll drop that in a minute. But that sprays, you can see that, really, really nice. Atomization on it at this, it's a little bit looks a little bit grainy. just a little, like that. We're going to go for a little bit more flow improver. We'll take that right up, we'll back bubble that. We'll pull that through. Back on the dots. That's better. That's atomising better. So a real thinned out mix. That's like 2 drops to like 12 to 13 drops of flow improver. And you can see how that's spraying now. That's spraying really nice. Now I'd be happy with that mix. Especially going in on a micro portrait because we can get right down. It has thinned it out as in like consistency of like the colour, but when you overload it like that and layer it up, it does build up. This is cheap paper, it's nothing fancy, this is your budget sort of paper we're working on. So it does spray down, it's really broken down. I mean, that is really, really washed out thin. If you were to tweak your mixes and go a little less flow improver, but for me, working at real small stuff, that would be ideal, an ideal mix. So that's the black with the Winsor Newton. We'll just clean that out. So it does do it. It does spray nice once you get it thinned down right. Right, we'll go water. We'll drop a bit of water in there. We'll drop a couple of drops of paint again. And this is the water mix, so we're just going to see what the water one's like. We'll just mix it up in the brush, like that. Pull that through. Now I think water is your best bet. Get down on your lettering. It's a very thinned out mix, we can drop that pressure down. This is extremely thinned out. And just see it slightly spreading. I'm going to drop another drop of paint in. 2 more drops. Let's thicken that up a bit. It's just finding your right consistency. Once you get it, you'll be all right. And then once you find your mix, see, that looks a little bit gritty again, see? So, and then you get a little bit of spidering. You can get their thinner that you can put in with it. That little back bubble. You can see that, see how thin that is. But that's a little bit darker and it's getting down. Not great. So tweaking it, I can get this to work, not a problem, it's doing it. You really want to be running, when you're doing this micro stuff, you want to be running real low pressure, and this is just it's just coming through a little bit. it's just breaking up, it's just spider webbing out, and this is really low pressure. And I'm doing minimal trigger. So finding the right consistency for it, you see it? Just breaking up. So yeah, I think for up close real, using it for like this sort of stuff that I'm doing, it will do it, but I think it's best suited to what it's meant for, the miniature painter guys, because you won't be running it this thin. Probably don't help because the studio's really cold. It's very cold in here this morning. And paint does different things with temperatures. Yeah, it works. I could get it to work and use it and use these colours, but it's just not doing what I want it to do. There you go, guys, that's my review. We all want the perfect YouTube review, don't we? It's like, I could have come in here this morning, put the paint in a little pot of warm water and heated it up and got the studio up to 24, 25 degrees. Everything would have flowed right and it would have been perfect. And then the first minute you go and buy it and you're in a studio like it is today, where it's 9 degrees freezing cold and your paint's been in the studio overnight, and you get that result what we got. Now, temperature can play a big part to paint. It really can. And I'm glad this happened on the demo with this paint, because we are trying this paint for something basically that it's sort of not designed for. It's for the miniature model painter world, that genre of airbrushing. And this is what can throw beginners off when it comes to looking at paint, because you type in airbrush paint and all this will pop up. If you went on Amazon, you'd have that pop up, you'd have FW inks pop up, you'd have all this variety of paints pop up. And I've always said it, certain airbrush paints are for certain things. They really are. And this is where it can throw the beginner, because they instantly go airbrush paint and buy a set. And it could be a set like that, which caters for the miniature modelers better. The beginner don't know that. He wants to paint on a piece of paper like I've just done. And he's gone and got that, and he's going to struggle. He's like, he's trying to thin it, he's doing this, he's on YouTube, he's looking at all these reviews. And then he goes to the reviews on YouTube, types this in, and every review he sees, it's all miniature model painters, because that's what they're using. And they're using it with a brush, a paintbrush, and an airbrush where they're backing off and they're like blocking out colours and filling in. They're not using it with a detailed airbrush, the full-on detail airbrush, 2mm off the paper, doing a micro portrait with it, because that's what that person wants to do, or you know. So the test that we did, I'm glad it actually did what it did. We used flow improver, Winsor Newton, and we used water. You can get a thinner cleaner for this paint, which thins it down, and you can use it for cleaning. But you can use water with it. It did on that little test piece over there. It worked really well. And the flow improver, when I put that next to it, the paint sort of bled into the flow improver, and just sort of, you could see it mixing by eye looking at it. When I tried the isopropanol, it didn't like it. It did mix it, as I said, it mixed it on there, but then when I wiped it off the silicone paper, it was a bit sticky and gloopy. It just sort of reacted slightly. So ISO with this is a no-no. Flow improver, yes, and the water, yes. Now, would I recommend this set to you if you are doing things on paper? You're going to struggle. You really are. If you really want the fine detail stuff, I think you're going to struggle with that paint. If you're a miniature model painter, I recommend it, because that is where it sort of sits best at what it can do with the colour ranges, and that the way it is, it will sit best for that, because it's got self-leveling properties in it. It can go straight down to plastic. You've not sort of got to worry. You can put your primers down and then put that over the top. You get your satin finishes, your metallics. There's loads of colour ranges in this. So for the people that have been using it for the miniatures, they probably love it. But my test with it today was trying to push it to different boundaries with it, thinning it, and using it for a different airbrush application other than miniature models. And that's the sort of results we got with the custom Micron Takumi. And we was running like 20 psi and bringing it down, and just as you can see, we were fiddling around with the mixes, with the flow improver and the water, just to get it to spray. And it was a hit and miss. It was like 1 minute I'd got it and we was getting really fine lines, but you're moving fast. So when you open that trigger up and you've got 20 psi, that paint's flowing, you've got that set and you're just moving. So it can look good, you know, that paint can look great because it's clean, it's doing a clean line. It's when you go up with an airbrush and you are on that trigger and you are on and off that trigger right up close. That's when you see paints fail. And that's where that failed. Stop starting. It was either blowing out, it got it, or it was a bit grainy, and it was just getting that mix right. And I did over thin that. So when you're looking for airbrush paint, I'll leave a link in the description to a site because it gives you a write-up of basically how to thin it, what it's best for, and things like that. And you can look through different paint ranges on this website, and it's just a better information than when you go to Amazon and you type in airbrush paint and all this stuff comes up, and you've got paint from say 10 quid up to paint sets that are like £200, you know. And it's just knowing what paint you need for the airbrush tasks that you are doing, because there is different paint that covers all these different genres in airbrushing. There really is. So that's my review, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Drop your comments, tell me your thoughts, and I will see you lot in the next one. Thanks for watching.